All of us, in today's society are being confronted with ways that AI is starting to influence us. If you have one of the new iPhones or any of the new smartphones, you already have AI in your pocket walking around with it. If you've gotten online to play with ChatGPT or to explore any of those other large language models, you know that there's a lot of things that AI can do. And so it's not surprising that AI is making its way into the classrooms of our children, really across the country and across the world. What we want to talk about today are the ways that AI is being used by one school district in Texas to help students learn writing instruction. That will be our topic of conversation today on Teaching Matters.
Welcome to Teaching Matter, a podcast exploring all things teaching and learning. Teaching Matters is produced by NPR affiliate WOUB Public Media in Athens, Ohio. And here is your host, Dr. Scott Titsworth, Dean of the Scripps College of Communication at Ohio University.
Joining me today are two teachers from the Galveston Independent School District in Galveston, Texas. Katie Assad is an elementary instructional coach, and Asia Cormier is a ninth grade honors English teacher, both using or working with the platform in their school district. Asia and Katie, thank you both so much for being on the podcast today.
Thank you for having us.
Yes, it's great to be here.
Excellent. We'll make you famous on this, all right? So I want to start just by sort of learning a little bit about your backgrounds and sort of the courses that you're teaching right now. We'll talk about the Writable platform as we go forward. But Katie, you're in an elementary school setting, and so can you talk about what your role is as an instructional coach and how you work with students?
So I get to work with teachers. We come in and we plan together. We look at data. We look at information and use it to drive our instruction. We're always, looking at what the students are scoring, where they're missing pieces of information, and we're trying to improve our lessons and, just make our curriculum and what we're teaching stronger in order to meet them where they're at and get them where they need to be.
Yeah.
So that's where I get to work with teachers and see them roll it out to students.
Mm-hmm. And you taught fourth grade is what you told me before?
Yes, I taught fourth grade for 10 years, and then I was able to do small group pullout for 2 years with third and fourth grade students. It was a position created after COVID to try to fill gaps for students, and then I was able to go into the instructional coaching. Mm-hmm. This is my second year doing that.
Did your light go off and you have to wave your hand?
It did, and it's just not coming back on.
Yeah,
there we go.
That happens in my office too. I totally get it. Asia, what about you? How long have you been teaching, and what course do you teach right now, or courses?
I've been teaching for 11 years, and I've taught either English 2 or English 1. I've been doing English 1 for 6 years now. I love it. It's kind of my jam. Working with the freshmen and just kind of building those skills.
Very good. To sort of also, if one or either of you, just to sort of let listeners who maybe wouldn't be familiar with Galveston, is there anything notable about, the Galveston School District and then the Galveston community that would sort of help listeners sort of understand the context that you're teaching in?
Well, we teach by the sea, which is really fun. And I think that we are a big, small town. We're big, but we're small enough that I feel like we kind of know all the students. And I'm sure Asia's got to teach some of my Parker babies. And, so I feel like it's a very cool situation where we get to kind of see the kids in elementary and we get to track them all the way through to the high school.
Mm-hmm. Right. Like Katie said, sorry. But we are a single high school district too. So we get every single kid in the district becomes a tour eventually. And so we do have the privilege of being able to track, literally we can see where they were from kindergarten all the way up to high school and be able to see their growth. And we are a pretty small community, even with the teaching community, we all kind of know each other. So it works out. Able to help and support each other in that way.
I've been to Galveston a couple times, and I understand what you say about it being a big small town, but how big actually is your district in terms of approximately the number of schools that would be in a graduating class or something like that?
We have 4 or 5 elementary schools, 2 middle schools, a 5th and 6th grade campus, a 7th and 8th grade campus, and I'm not sure what's the enrollment at Ball.
I think right now we're at About 2,100, give or take a few.
Yeah, very good. One of the things I mentioned before we started recording is what's interesting about being able to have this discussion today is that you both teach at different developmental levels for students. Katie, given your interaction with the teachers and the students in an elementary school setting, when they're teaching writing instruction, what are some of the primary skills that they're trying to develop at that age point that students are, trying to build upon?
I mean, we're starting with handwriting, I mean, we're coming in trying to get the students to form their letters. So, I mean, that's what we're building upon. And then, it goes to capital letters and punctuation and nouns and verbs and complete sentences. Then, by third and fourth grade, you need to have a topic sentence, you need to have text evidence, you need to support, with detailed explanations and have conclusions. So, I mean, we're starting at the bottom and we're building to, what we hope is supporting them for when they get to ball and are writing essays and, things like that.
And I know that this is likely to vary from one teacher in classroom to another, but in an elementary classroom with a group of students, about how much time are teachers spending on writing instruction as opposed to the other subjects that they're teaching?
You hope on a good day you get 45 minutes in your ELAR block to devote to writing, which is not that much. It's a lot to cover in a little bit of time. And of course, we're all self-contained. So sometimes that is shorter on some days. Sometimes it's much longer, especially in our third and fourth grade classrooms that are, experience the state testing. That that writing block tends to be a lot longer as we do start heading towards STAR.
Asia, by the time they get to ninth grade, how are the learning objectives that you're trying to achieve? How do they build upon those that Katie mentioned?
They're exactly the same. So even in ninth grade, we're still working with the students on organization, making sure that they have clear like paragraphs and transitions, that they're able to support their thesis statements and topic sentences with relevant text evidence, so that they are really forming cohesive arguments. A lot of, I mean, when you talk to the kids, they say, well, we did this already. I say, we did, and now we need to make it better. And so we're just building on those same skills. It's not a big difference. It's just maybe more difficult text, more in-depth analysis, but it's essentially the same.
So before, both of you, I think, have probably been teaching long enough that you remember life before AI. And so, before you started using the Writable platform, what were some of the common approaches that teachers might use to teach at those two different levels writing instruction?
There was a lot of reading of papers, a lot of time spent, a lot of papers brought home, and a lot of time on my couch reading and giving, suggestions and yeah, a lot of hours put in outside of the workday to help students with their writing.
Very much. It was very time intensive. And with that, you had to figure out what was important, right? So figuring out, am I just going to focus on reading thesis statements with this essay? Because if you like, I teach 120, 130 students, that's a lot of time. So if I wanted to give like really relevant feedback, you had to focus on one thing. It was hard. Otherwise, it's a month-long process of just going through the essays.
It was it typical? So one of the things that I read about the Writable platform is that it tries to sort of chunk and break up and scaffold learning, which I'll have you talk about in a bit. But I'm trying to think about what you just said. Did you take approaches, like if you're going to focus on topic sentences, for example, were there approaches that you could use before the Writable platform that would let you sort of chunk up instruction on discrete elements like that? Or was it more typical that you would have them do writing and then you, as you said, Katie, focus on one thing as you're evaluating and grading that writing assignment?
You're asking if there was like a curriculum that covered that?
Yeah, or maybe the way I would describe it is, did you plan your assignments in ways that would focus on specific elements, Or was it that you just had them write essays and then at the grading level you focused on specific elements?
I know for
Gotcha.
us, we try to, um, and I still teach writing this way. So we start with our thesis statement.
Hmm.
What is our main idea? What is our topic of our essay? And then we would kind of write out of order. Then we would do our body paragraphs. So based off of this thesis statement, how would we want to support it? How would we organize our body paragraphs? So on and so forth. So we did try and teach it in a way that as we went along, we could do check-ins to make sure that they're on track. But I mean, in reality, especially teaching high school, my on track and the kids being able to do the work and submit it on time was a different. We weren't always on the same page.
Yeah.
So even still, we like most kids, I was able to like give feedback along the way, but sometimes you wouldn't see a finished product until it was time for it to be due.
Yeah, absolutely. Katie, anything to add to that?
I agree. I would definitely start with the main idea. And I mean, we would focus so long with just getting the introduction. And, I think too, with in a classroom, I mean, I've only taught self-contained. So, I mean, I would have a classroom of 20, 24 kids. And even just in a classroom that small, you have students that are mastering your topic sentence and you got that first paragraph down and you have students that are struggling to write a sentence.
Hmm.
So, I mean, you're having to vary your instructions so much so I don't know if they were ever all on the same page, but definitely we were chunking little by little to end up with a final product.
Sure. Yeah. Let's switch gears and start talking about Writable a little bit. How long has Galveston ISD been in a partnership with Writable? Like when did you all start using it?
About 4 years ago.
I think so, about 4.
Was this something that came on like right after COVID or?
Well,
So
I
we've had HMH. Sorry, go ahead, Asia.
No, I was for writables. Like I know the elementary schools used HMH, like the whole curriculum package. We did not. We had adopted another textbook. We picked up Writable when our state test changed.
Hmm.
So our state test, like the format of the test changed, and one of the things that they brought on to help all of us was the Writable platform.
Hmm. So, Asia, let me kind of focus on you, and then Katie, I'll come back to you and have you talk maybe a little bit about the big picture of how you're using Writable. But Asia, in your classroom, when students come in and you're using the platform sort of on a day-to-day basis, can you just sort of describe what that looks like? If I was a new person coming in to meet your students and see how you teach, what would I see when I observe that?
So typically, what I like about Writable is they have passages that are already built in that you can use to help with writing, but you can also upload passages. So we a lot of times will upload a release star test because that's our state test, and we would upload a passage, and we would go through and right now I'm finally doing like the release where I'm letting them read the passages themselves. But we would start by just like going over the passage together, looking at the writing prompt, and then going in and highlighting like text evidence. We do that before we even start with a graphic organizer or developing a thesis statement. What are some things that we think we might be able to use or that can connect to whatever our prompt is? Then, like in Writable, there are graphic organizers. They're built-in graphic organizers. You can also create your own where the kids are able to organize their ideas first. So where would I put my text evidence in my body paragraphs? Where would I put my explanations? So they work on those graphic organizers first, and then after that, we move into putting it all together into like a final writing piece.
And is that something that would happen like in one class period or what you all just described that's over multiple class periods?
Yes. So again, our classes are only 45 minutes. So ideally, if we introduce a passage and a prompt, probably by the end of that first day, we have a solid like thesis statement or an idea of where we're going. The next day, we would probably work on filling out the graphic organizer. And a good thing about Writable that I love is that there's like a guide within Writable, so you can see what they're doing as they're typing from your computer, and you can kind of make sure that they're on track from there. So you're getting up, you can walk around, but every kid is not always going to ask for help. Every kid is not going to reach out and say, Miss Cormier, can you help me with that? I'm able to say like, hey, I can send them a message. I can call them to my desk, and that helps a lot too. So then that's a day. And then another day would be them putting it all together and typing it up.
And so you have visibility on what the students are doing in the platform, sort of on a as as it's happening basis, right? Both of you, in answers to my previous questions, talked about sort of the work-intensive nature of providing writing feedback before a platform like this. Asia, has it changed the way that you operate as a teacher in terms of giving feedback?
Yes, so much, because it's so easy to address like misconceptions right there in the moment versus waiting until you have a finished product. So you're able to help them way before we get to the end and they like, well, I'm done already. I don't need to look at this again. Because a lot of kids, once they turn in something, that's it. They're done with it. They don't want to revise it. They
Yeah.
don't want. I'm not reading this again. But in this moment, we're able to, or with this platform, we're able to go right back and say, hey, so I saw you thought this. Let's look at it again. Let's talk about this. And it really helps. It's been a game changer for me. I'm going to tell you, we didn't like it at first because we don't like new things here. But once
So true.
Says every teacher ever, right?
but once we figured out like all of the things that Writable could do, it really has improved our writing instruction leaps and bounds so much.
As I read about Writable, one of the, and I could be getting this wrong, so correct me if I am, but one of the potential ways that Writable can help students is that it can also provide feedback for them in the moment that's independent of the teacher. Have you observed that happening with your students, and how do they react to that?
Um, they really apply it. I've had students come because the AI feedback, I mean, it's really helpful for me and for them, but sometimes they don't always get it, or sometimes the AI is not always, they may have changed things and the AI hasn't caught up to what they've changed it. So they're like, well, this isn't making sense to me, but they use it. They definitely refer to it and say, well, this is what this told me to do. Do you think this is what I should do? Like they'll double check, but they do use the AI feedback as much as we do.
Yeah, interesting that it actually opens dialogue with you to talk about what the AI says. Katie, turning to you in your role as an instructional coach, what I heard you say earlier is that you're working with a group of teachers that's using this platform. Maybe kind of go into a little bit more detail about how you interact with the platform and the teachers as they're using it. Like, what's your specific role in this?
I mean, I definitely am an encourager to use it. I mean, that's definitely where I start. It's a district initiative. We use HMH, so we are expected to use Writable. But more than that, I've explored Writable and I do think it's great. While I say yes, we have to use it, I also like to say, but we should use it because. And Asia said something a second ago that I wanted to piggyback on. She was talking about the hesitant students that like are not going to ask for help, but are still going to receive the feedback. And I think that that is one thing that has been great for the students that are embarrassed to ask for help or just are not ready to ask for help. They can still receive feedback without calling attention to themselves. And then sometimes I feel like they are more likely to ask for help later from the teacher, or even if there's peer editing. I will say that we've had a lot of conversations in our PLCs of students who were hesitant to write, who are starting to feel more confident in their writing, because I think that they're getting support that they may not have asked for in class. Maybe they were embarrassed to ask for it in class. So I wanted to definitely piggyback on what she was saying, that I think it's great for those hesitant writers, those writers who just need a little bit of a confidence boost. I think that also Asia had said that at first we were hesitant. We didn't like it because it is change and we have our ways and we are stuck in our ways because our ways are better. But I think as a campus, we've really opened up to Writable. And I think that especially for our school, we've seen a lot of improvement in our writing. And we like it. We're happy with it. We're happy with what Writable does for us. We're happy with what the time that it frees up for our teachers.
Yeah. Typically on any type of a platform like this, one of the benefits is that it gives the group of educators sort of a 10,000-foot view of what's going on, across a group of students. Have either of you, seen how that, comes through in using Writable? In other words, does it give you as a group of faculty an opportunity to say, our students seem to be, doing this when they're writing topic sentences, and it's a consistent, that type of trend analysis? Any examples of that you can think of?
I think sometimes the students have similar feedback that they're able to talk about.
Hmm.
A student might get, a suggestion on their writing, and then they're able to be like, oh yeah, no, I know how to help you with this one. Like, because we do a lot of peer editing as well. So I think that I just feel like it's giving the students some knowledge that they're able to share with others, or that they're able to talk about in class. So I feel like, I don't know. I don't know how to put that in words exactly, but it's giving them like it's a confidence boost.
Mm-hmm.
It's giving them a little bit of extra tutoring, I guess. Like, it's a little tutor. It's an AI tutor.
Mm-hmm.
It does that. And then another cool feature, which I think is new, I don't remember us having this last year. As more students turn in their assignments, it will tell you, like, the Writable will evaluate their writing and say, your students are strong on finding relevant evidence. They need help with explanations. Here's a lesson that can help you with that. And that's been a game changer too, just to kind of see like how it's aggregating those trends and telling you. And then, like Katie said, it helps the kids with having like the language to help each other too. Just like they're able to say, like she said, like, well, I saw this and it told me this. I can help you with this part now. So it kind of helps them kind of become stronger writers and be more confident with, I don't know, I like she said, it's just the way that it's kind of presenting that information to them is giving them like the confidence they need to help themselves and each other.
Yeah, I'm trying to think back about my daughter, who's more obviously more recently in the school setting than I was. But even when I was in K-12, if you were doing a writing project, and just like both of you said, if you're doing peer review, you sit in a circle, you pass your essay to the right, your friend reads it and gives you feedback on it, and kind of ends there. With Writable, is there an opportunity for a student to sort of see how they progress? In other words, does it sort of keep track of the student's progress and let them be reflective on where they started and where they end up?
That's not, Asia, have you seen that?
Not There's no way for them to see like from SA1 to SA3, like that type of growth. They can go back like on individual assignments. I know I can on my end. We can see the revisions that they make as they're writing. So we always do a peer review process with every writing assignment, and they're able to go back and like make edits after their peers have reviewed their work, and they can see the changes that they've made like per assignment. But I don't know if we can see it like across
Yeah,
different assignments.
that makes sense. Given that the Writable platform gives the students feedback, and and what I hear is that it's letting you as teachers give feedback as well. Do you ever what I'm getting at in my question is, does that ever cause an overload for the students? So in other words, if I am one of those reticent writers, I wouldn't be the kid to raise my hand and get help, but now I'm getting all this feedback. Certainly I see why that would be a benefit for that student in the long run, but do you have to think about like that student's getting so much information that they don't know how to sort of start on making themselves better?
That's not been something that's come up. I mean, I know that it's not like the teachers are just like, oh, just look at this feedback. I feel like we've made anchor charts that kind of explain the feedback. The teachers are giving mini lessons about the feedback, and the teachers are also still giving their feedback. Like, we're not just
Right.
leaving it up to the AI. It's more of like, we're working on this together. AI is just part of the process.
I asked my question really poorly, but I think you kind of answered it. But what I was getting at is that sometimes, like I work with, freshmen through seniors in college, but if I have a freshman in a class and they're learning, whatever it is that we're teaching, there are some students, if I give them all the feedback that I could, like on their first writing assignment, that might just shut them down because it's so much, it's
Hmm.
overwhelming. And then if I layer onto that, like, we have a learner management system. It's not like Writable, but it allows for them to get feedback on, writing assignments and stuff. I can just see them get overwhelmed sometimes. So sometimes I have to kind of plan and scaffold my instructions so that I say, focus on this now, and then we'll worry about this stuff later. That's kind of what I was getting at, but it sounds like I don't know if you all want to respond to that as I rephrased it, but
Well, with the AI feedback on Writable, before we submit it for the kids to see, like the final feedback or anything like that, you have the option to edit it.
uh,
So again, it kind of goes into like how well do you know this student? If it's somebody who I know can only take one or two things at a time,
mhm,
then I'm going to go back because we read through the feedback before we submit it to make sure that we agree with it because we don't always. Um, and I might say, I want you to focus on revising this and this versus everything that the AI told them to. Because again,
yeah.
like you said, they get overwhelmed. Now they're shutting down. So you kind of have to gauge once you know your students well enough, what is the important things that I need them to
Mhm.
work on? And let's better this before we move on to the next thing.
That's great. Yeah. Um, Both of you sort of talked about the issue that teachers, by and large, are going to be reticent to going onto a new system and having to have that impact everything that they do. What's the advice you would give, if you're talking to somebody in another district where they're adopting a platform like this, knowing that, it's hard to change, but that you all see the benefits in it? What's the advice you would give to them to sort of get prepared to get the best impact out of the Writable platform or something similar?
I think just getting in there and looking around. I think it's impressive. I think that the assignments available on there for Texas are very applicable to our state testing. Um, and I always think you should work smarter, not harder. And I feel like this platform makes that possible. So I would say really just looking at it and giving your students a few assignments and looking at the feedback. I think the feedback is positive. I think it's cute how it words it. It gives them stars, their exclamation points. Like, I don't know, it's a super positive
Hmm.
thing that's happening. So I don't think it's something to be afraid of. It's something to try and embrace.
Asia?
I would agree with Katie 100%. We spent a few PLCs before we actually like introduced it and rolled it out to the kids, just pressing buttons, really just clicking around and seeing what were things that we liked, what were things that we didn't like, what were some things that we wanted to try. There's a way in Writable for you to like copy assignments and model them as a student. So we did that a lot just to see
Hmm.
how it worked so we could address questions because we know kids, if something doesn't work the first time, it's like, oh, you don't know what you're doing. So we tried to make sure that we had a good grasp of it before we rolled it out, and that helped tremendously, just being able to know what everything was and just playing around with it, and we've really enjoyed it here.
Sort of a practical question. Are you all a Chromebook campus? So all of your students have that?
Yes.
And is when you're using Writable, is this something that's only done in the school setting, or are students also taking their Chromebooks home and doing homework with it?
We do both.
Yeah.
Not at elementary. We're keeping the Chromebooks here,
Yeah.
but
I could see why that would be prudent. So,
yeah.
well, both of you, I think, have described this really well. Are there any other, like, I'm just wondering if either of you, have, without saying a student's name, are there any examples of a student where you've seen them sort of become I don't know, a star, in your classroom because they, have been able to improve their writing and this platform has really aided them? Any great examples that you can think of?
I have one. I have a student who I had last year, and he's in English 2 honors now, and he is a really good student. He struggled with taking tests. He struggled with writing, like in timed environments. And so last year we just practiced. And at first he would get down on himself when he wasn't scoring where he wanted to. And I said, but I want us, we started tracking our growth. And I was like, look, every time you write an essay, you're getting higher and higher. Look at this. And I mean, like, not saying that state assessments are what we, set everything on, but he did very well on his STAR test last year. And it's because his confidence grew because he was practicing all the time, and we kept track of it, and we kept noticing. I was like, you're growing, we not gonna get down. We might have started at a 36, we are at a 56 now. Look at that 20-point growth. It may not be great yet, but 20 points, like, that's incredible. So I mean, just kind of that encouragement and being able for him to practice his writing and get that feedback made all the difference. So I mean, I love it. I got tingles when I thought about it because he's so good. I just love him so much. But it was just seeing his growth and how confident he became.
That's great. Those are the stories that, keep us doing what we're doing, right? So, Katie, do you have anything to add?
I don't have a student story, but I just have the growth that I can talk about on our campus, which has been great. I definitely think that our writing scores are improving, and I mean, hopefully Asia will notice that in about 5 years when she gets our kids.
Yeah. And Katie, I would assume, I guess the last question for students at the elementary level, when they're using a, system like this, no problems with a younger student, sort of being able to, use a system that is built on AI and, that sort of thing?
So our third and fourth graders are the ones that are using Writable right now. So we're talking about, 8, 9, and 10-year-olds. And they have no issues. It's very user friendly.
By that age, they're pretty comfortable with technology, so.
They could out technology me any day.
Absolutely. Well, it was great to meet both of you. I actually, it's pretty cold here. I wish I was in Galveston to meet you in person, but it's been great to get to know you and to hear your stories about how you're using Writable in the classroom. And it's really, sort of awesome to be able to hear how, this big thing of AI is really changing, to the better, how teachers can, help students learn how to write, which of course is one of the most important skills that they learn as they're going through education. So thanks for your time, and thanks for being willing to tell your stories.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you.
Absolutely. My guests today were Asia Cormier and Katie Assad, both of whom teach at Galveston ISD in Galveston, Texas. Thanks to everyone for listening. I want to give special thanks to April Koska and Trinity Sweet, associate producers for the podcast. If you would like to reach out to us with ideas, suggestions, or comments, the easiest way to do that is through email. Just send an email to teachingmatterspodcast, all one word, all lowercase, at ohio.edu, teachingmatterspodcast at ohio.edu. Thanks everyone for listening, and we hope you have a great day.